Hello, everyone. We have an exciting episode today with our featured guest, Jenn Harbin. Jenn is a product manager in tech with a background in media and entertainment, e-commerce, advertising, and beauty. She's lived on the West Coast and abroad, but has spent most of her life in Middle Tennessee. Jenn is an amazing, beautiful professional woman who has been experiencing hair loss for the past 3 to 4 years. Jenn is going to open up today and share the good, the bad of her hair loss journey with us.
Hello, thank you for listening to Thyroid Hair Loss Connection Podcast, a science-based, honest, candid conversation about how your thyroid affects your hair. You will learn practical solutions to hair growth, healing your thyroid, and balancing hormones with holistic nutrition approach and the latest treatments. Your hosts, me, Nataliia Sanzo, a registered dietitian, aka Nashville thyroid expert, and Kimberly Vaughn, a board-certified trichologist, hair loss specialist, and coach. To stay up to date on the latest topics, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We also cannot do this without you. Send us a question to the link below and tune in each week for the answers. Now, let's head to the show.
Today, we will discuss the ins and the outs of how hormone imbalance will cause hair loss. You will learn how Jenn's history, dedication, and health have played such a major impact on her hair loss and her hair growth. Oh yes, be sure to listen to the entire podcast. Nataliia and I have a major surprise for you. Oh yes, and also I would be remiss to not share this. This was actually Jenn's idea, so make sure that you ping her along the way and tell her thanks, because you're going to be the ones that are going to win. Jenn, welcome. We're so glad to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's jump right in and turn this back to you so that we can understand more about you, your history, and when you first noticed you were experiencing hair loss.
Awesome. So I was living in San Francisco, and I just started to notice a lot of hair fall in my home, in my bathroom, on my pillow. And it just seemed like an abnormal amount of hair loss, like hair fall. I know that there is an average number of hairs that you lose a day, but it just seemed too much. So I actually first went to visit a dermatologist because I started researching online and everything was telling me to find a dermatologist. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I go and have a consultation, and she didn't really seem concerned. And then she told me some options. She recommended like over-the-counter Rogaine minoxidil, and that was kind of it. She didn't have a really in-depth analysis or kind of like advice on really how to address it, and she also didn't seem concerned, so I kind of brushed it off, to be honest, and I was like, okay, maybe this is just a phase or something that I'm going through that will resolve over time.
Jenn, let me ask you, did the dermatologist at that time look at your scalp with a magnifying scope? Did she take a biopsy?
She did not take a biopsy. She did look at my scalp, and based on that, she didn't really do an in-depth analysis, no, but
okay.
Yeah.
No blood work?
No blood work.
I think we're seeing a pattern here.
I think we have an answer.
Absolutely.
So then how did seeing the hair in the bottom of the shower, right, filter all through your brushes and your combs, on your pillow, and everywhere else in your house, as you were saying? How were you feeling after you went to the dermatologist and really more or less kind of was brushed off as that it's really no big deal?
Right. I mean, to be honest, I was concerned that I wasn't really having the right person address the issue, and I didn't really know what to do, to be honest. And I think because it was brushed off, I just honestly didn't take it very seriously, even though it was still happening. And then so I just kind of put it on the back burner and didn't really address it. And then fast forward. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So while you were in San Francisco, were you under a lot of stress, or were there changes in your life at that time that also were impacting or affecting you?
Oh, yes. So I work in tech, still do. But at the time I was working for an e-commerce company, and it was very, very stressful. And I could definitely tell it was taking a toll on my health. And I could tell too that my body just wasn't really handling the stress very well. It just felt like I was internalizing it constantly. And also, not too long after I noticed a lot of hair loss, I ended up moving to Seoul, South Korea. It was a bit of a personal journey for me, but I ended up moving there. And of course, that was very stressful because I ended up finding a job that asked me to move there in 3 weeks. And I had originally planned to take 6 months to kind of plan out the moving abroad. And so I ended up selling everything and having to rush, fast tracking all of my life to get there in 3 weeks. So I did that. And when I got to, again, the hair loss was in the back of my mind. It never really came up again until I was in Seoul in South Korea, and I had taken about a couple months to settle in. And then I noticed my hair loss just getting worse. Not necessarily the hair fall, because that was happening. I was kind of used to that, but then suddenly the hair on my scalp and just like noticing the thinness on my scalp, I was like, wow, this is really getting noticeably worse. So then I decided to research solutions in Korea, what that would look like. I had no idea because I don't speak Korean, and which was challenging in of its own. So suddenly I was, trying to find a dermatologist there. And because of my previous experience with the dermatologist, and it wasn't very helpful, I was like, well, maybe this isn't the right person to go to. So then I started looking at other options. And in Seoul, South Korea, there's a very well-known area called Gangnam, which has a lot of different places that everything from like plastic surgery to beauty to, it's just a very popular area for different kinds of solutions like that. So I found this doctor called Lee Moon Won, and what I liked about what I found on his website online was that he had offered this natural approach to hair loss. And so I went for a consultation, and again, I don't speak Korean, so it was a little difficult to get the full impact, I guess. But we still understood each other enough to really kind of like address the concerns I was having. And I don't quite remember the process, but there was like a machine that I was hooked up to, and they kind of monitored my levels of essentially it was monitoring my levels of stress and kind of how my body reacted to certain situations. And he could, at the end of the day, it was basically telling me, he's like, you're really stressed out. I was like, yes.
Aren't we all? Thanks, Doc, for telling me that. How much did I pay for this consultation?
Exactly. But what he offered as practice was there's this natural herbal medicine, basically supplements, I would say, that specifically medicinal, like Korean herbs. And then there were these scalp injections that I got every 6 weeks, and then this topical spray. And I did that for 6 months, and it would made a noticeable difference.
So let's hear that again. So it made a noticeable difference.
Noticeable difference.
That's
absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He also addressed there was inflammation on my scalp, and he told me that was a part of it as well. So over the past 6 months, my hair grew back. It was much healthier. My scalp was healthier, and my hair was in great shape until I moved back to the U.S.
How long were you in South Korea again?
I was there for 8 months.
Okay, and this process, you found him a few months into your starting the new career there. Okay.
Yes.
So you were starting to see new growth. The hair was coming back. It certainly was looking more supple, healthy, fuller.
Right.
So that was great. And so then you have this stress of then moving back to the U.S., right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Continue on from there.
So I moved back, and everything seemed fine for a little while, and then suddenly I just started to notice the hair fall again, like on my pillow, on the floor, everywhere. I'm just like, oh, it's like there's something still wrong, and there's like I need to I need to do more research and figure out like what this could be. So I honestly started just kind of self-diagnosing myself and trying every natural method I could find online, from natural oils like rosemary and peppermint. And I found some company in the UK had created this hair topical and shampoo, and I tried that, and I did scalp massages, and I researched different types of hair loss, specifically in women, and I did all this for a long time. And then I also learned what a trichologist was, which I had no idea. I had no idea what that was. And then when I started researching local places that could address hair loss in Nashville, I found HPI actually. And I saw that you were a trichologist, and I was specifically looking for trichologists in Nashville. So that's how I found HPI online.
Jenn, so give us an idea, because I know this will help the listener, on a timeline. Walk us through a visual on when you first noticed the hair loss, and to the few steps that you went through, and now you're back in the States. You've now been able to research and to find, hopefully, somebody else that's able to help you.
Mm-hmm. So when I first noticed the hair loss and I went to the dermatologist, I would say that was probably over a span of a few months. And then when I moved to South Korea, that was an additional probably couple of months. So after spending time there and then moving back to Nashville in 2019, I mean, that's probably a good year and a couple of months. And then whenever I did additional research and kind of tried my own methods, that was over a span of a few months. So overall, I'd probably say a year and a half until I actually was like, okay, I need to actually see a professional and see what's wrong.
And have you ever, I know you said you've gone down the rabbit hole on Google trying to diagnose yourself. Mm-hmm. Have you ever run across a source that says that there's something inside that you need to feed your body from the inside? Because you obviously looked up all kinds of topical, treatments, but did you do, or have you thought about doing all the work from the inside?
Oh, absolutely. So when I researched, I saw a lot, specifically for women too, or I saw a lot of articles reference hormonal imbalance, thyroid disorders, like PCOS, I think was another one. And that was another concern that I had, and I hadn't really done any blood work, and I didn't really have a specific diagnosis. So that was definitely something I wanted to explore further. And I tried to address that through diet. Like I was reading up on certain foods to avoid, like anti-inflammatory, and how that can certainly cause hair loss, or at least inflammation in your body that may be causing that. But I didn't do any deep analysis of that until I went to HPI. So
when you said you were searching for a trichologist, this is interesting, and we'll get into the depth of trichology in another episode, but how did you know to look for a trichologist?
Well, when I researched online, I honestly was just Googling like hair loss doctor, I think it was what the terms I put in, and a dermatologist came up for some things, and then I started to notice other search results. Specifically, I found this woman who was a trichologist. And I was like, oh, what is a trichologist? And so I looked at what that was and saw it was specific to scalp health. And honestly, with hair, and I know it sounds silly, I guess I never really thought about this, the scalp and how much that really contributes to your hair health and things like that. And so that was something that I put together, not just because I happened to stumble upon it.
Good. So you're smarter than the average bear.
I like to think so.
So then we're now in 2020, right? Mm-hmm. And you then reached out to HPI, scheduled a consultation. Now, tell us where that road led you.
Absolutely. So when I went to HPI, we had a consultation. We ran some blood work that revealed that I had some deficiencies in certain things, which could be a root cause of some of the hair loss that I was seeing, and especially in just the health of my hair as well. So I was advised to take some supplements and also look at my thyroid, because there were some specific levels, I think, that the lab work was showing that I needed to explore further. And so you had recommended a couple of integrative functional medicine doctors, and so I actually went to go to go see one, and they did some additional lab work, and I was able to discover that my hormone levels were off, and specifically my adrenal glands were not really operating at the way that they should in terms of regulating my stress hormone, cortisol.
So Jenn, yes, adrenals play a huge role in cortisol and all the hormone balance, but you also mentioned that you had some thyroid hormone imbalances. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Actually, I only know about the adrenals and the cortisol levels. I don't really know how that relates to the thyroid, but I'd love to know more, and if you can share like what that looks like. And then I know that's a common thing in women too. That's something I was reading online a lot. So I'd love to hear from your perspective how all that works.
Yes, absolutely. It's more thyroid disorders are more common than people think they are. 1 in 8 women actually either have thyroid disease or will be diagnosed with thyroid disorders during their lifetime at some point.
Wow.
And it's right now estimated that it's about 20 million Americans have some sort of thyroid disorders. And 90% of those thyroid disorders are diagnosed as hypothyroidism. So it's a slow, sluggish thyroid. It doesn't give you any hormones. So your metabolism slows down. Your hair falls out, constipation, because all your digestion slows down as well. So, and 90% of those hypothyroidism cases are actually caused by Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease. So in my practice, all 99% of women that come to me have Hashimoto's. That's why I'm every time I hear a thyroid that somebody ran a lab, I always ask, what did you get? What are your numbers? Because it's an easy fix, I would say. Not really easy, but you start taking thyroid replacement hormone medication and your life, you kind of get back to normal and your hair stops falling out. Of course, there's more to it than that. Diet, lifestyle choices, and stress reduction is also important. But that's why I'm asking, like, did you get any diagnosis?
No, actually, now that you bring it up, that was something that we addressed because the doctor that I saw, the functional medicine doctor, he actually told me that my hormones weren't, or I wasn't producing enough. And so he actually recommended or prescribed progesterone. Progesterone, yes. Yeah, exactly.
So that's a steroid. And usually if your thyroid, if the root of the cause of your thyroid imbalance, the gland, is not autoimmune disease, they usually prescribe a steroid, something like progesterone, to kind of bring you up. Just like a shot of espresso, pretty much. But it would be very helpful if you can come back to the doctor and ask for a full thyroid panel, because you want to know there is obviously something triggered it. It may have happened 10 years ago or 2 years ago when you moved to US, whenever it was. You need to find the root cause, because that will determine the treatment plan, because you can't just take steroid hormone for years, because you know how bad it is just for your overall health. So get to the root cause of your thyroid imbalance.
I see. Yeah, thank you.
Which then many times relates to the root cause of your hair loss.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So now, after you saw the functional medicine physician, you started taking some supplements, I'm sure.
I did.
Okay. And then I know we at HPI, after running some labs and also working a little bit with a hair follicle test that we do, focusing more on supporting you from either restricting some foods, restricting some additives, adding and boosting different areas in the diet, which is the reason Nataliia has come on board with us to really support that and help that area.
Yeah.
What else are you doing at this point for your hair loss, and how is your hair now?
It's doing so well. I mean, it's been quite a journey, but and I've done a series of mixed methods of addressing it, but it's made a huge difference from whenever I first started at HPI.
Okay, Jenn, you said you used a lot of methods to kind of maybe trial and error, figure out your hair loss. Did you do anything with your diet? Have you changed anything, any supplements? Can you share that with our listeners to kind of give them hope?
Absolutely. So in terms of my diet, so I really wanted to address my hair loss from within, you could say. And so I really wanted to make sure that my body was in the best state to grow healthy hair. And so I cut out, I eat pretty healthy anyway. Like I don't really eat dairy. I don't eat a lot of like bread, but I had been, so I cut that out also because I'd read, like, as you mentioned earlier, like the autoimmune disease. And I know that I think wheat, there's some impact there. I cut out alcohol. This was during COVID. And so it was a time when it was, a lot of people, there wasn't any much going out. So I think it was an opportune time for me to really just kind of stay at home and eat really healthy. And I focus on a lot of fresh produce and protein and eggs and things like that from a diet perspective. As far as the methods that HPI recommended and I was able to use, so they offered the low-level laser therapy. Yes. Thank you. Which I started doing several times a week. So that was one thing that I implemented. There was also a number of supplements to, again, kind of put those nutrients back. Because that's something else too. I've realized there's a lot of the food that we eat. I don't think you probably get the most nutrients out of them just for multiple reasons. So I think I really believe in supplements. I know a lot of people don't, but I've noticed a huge difference when I've started taking them versus when I'm not. And then I also there were some topicals that I had been using with HPI, as well as I tried PRP, which was a new treatment. And Kimberly, you can probably share a little bit more what that is with our listeners, because I will probably not explain it well enough. But it was, I found it to be a pretty innovative procedure in terms of I hadn't seen it in the market or available. So I was like really intrigued in how it worked. And it seemed just based on how it, like taking your own
platelets or blood.
Exactly. Yes. And it's, and putting it back in your body and seeing how that can stimulate new growth. New cells. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That seemed, I was excited to try it.
Yeah, it sounds like you were just reading from the textbook. You did everything, right, that Kimberly and I are promoting in our practice. Mm-hmm. You were exactly right about cutting out dairy and gluten, because even though you may not have sensitivities, like gluten and dairy sensitivities, most people don't have it. But it just, those two things tend to be so inflammatory, and that inflammation shows up on the scalp. So when they do check you under a microscope, I don't know.
Trichoscope.
Thank you. Of course. They see that inflammation, and that may come from the foods you eat. So that was exactly the correct choice. And I'm a believer in supplements as well, because the life is very stressful right now, and we just tend to be deficient in certain vitamins and minerals, and especially if you have thyroid disorders of some sort. It doesn't have to be an autoimmune disease, it doesn't have to be that serious, but it just causes nutrient depletions, because when you have slow thyroid, it slows down your digestion and absorption. So you're not absorbing all the nutrients from the good and healthy and clean foods you eat. So it's totally okay and normal to take supplements. Of course, they have to be high quality, good supplements prescribed by healthcare professional.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, good job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was another thing too. I let HPI is just the quality of the supplement, which I found to, I do realize that makes a huge difference. And yeah.
Yes.
I'd love to ask you some more questions related to nutrition and thyroid and how you've seen that relate to hair loss, or like some common patterns that you've seen. And so people, I guess, can understand more earlier signs so they can detect it earlier, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, thyroid and hair loss are so tightly connected that I feel like Kimberly and I should open up a practice together, and that's all we should be doing, because one thing doesn't go without the other. Like I mentioned, thyroid influences so many systems in the body. I mean, it regulates your metabolism, your digestion, your heat and cold intolerances, fertility, right, in men and women, and of course, growth. And I'm not just talking about nails and hair. They're just superficial. That's just being cute. We're talking about growing bones and growing, children when they grow up. We're talking about serious potential issues. So when your thyroid hormones are imbalanced just enough to cause stress in your body, all your systems shut down. And the last thing, your thyroid hormone directs all that energy to your heart, to your brain, to your essential organs, right? And functions. What's non-essential is growing our hair and nails. Because that's the last thing we need while our body's trying to survive. Because our body's still living in the, prehistoric times when we're running away from, tigers and stuff. So we're in survival mode. So who needs beautiful hair and skin and nails while we're trying to survive? So that's why a thyroid is so important. And that's how it affects hair loss and in the connection. Thyroid hair loss connection.
What a great title.
Are there preventative things that people can do from like a nutritional standpoint to manage that?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. And, one of the things I would say, if your person is smoking, quit smoking. Because it's very disruptive to your whole body. It depletes oxygen to your hair. And we know how important it is. We always talk about blood flow, increasing blood flow to our hair follicles. So when a person is a smoker, that's what it's lacking, the oxygen, and that's where you see hair loss. Of course, reducing intake of dairy, wheat, and soy. Soy is not necessarily a bad nutrient, but it's very controversial. And I'm leaning towards the controversy where it's do not eat it. It just causes a lot of inflammation. And it causes more harm than good. There are other foods that you can get the nutrition that soy has without the stuff that soy has that cause inflammation. So soy, one of those. Of course, this is kind of not related to nutrition, but I have experienced that when you go to doctor's office and you do x-ray, make sure you ask for a color, like a neck color, to cover your thyroid from radiation. Because one of the leading causes of thyroid disease is exposure to radiation. And I'm saying that, or I'm talking about that because I'm a Chernobyl child. I was born in Russia, and that whole Chernobyl exposure kind of that may have caused I have Hashimoto's. So that's why I'm bringing that up. Very important.
Yeah.
Of course, consider supplements. Like we already talked a lot. So many people have nutrient deficiencies. So replenishing them with supplements is a great way. But I do want to say to our listeners and you, Jen, that we shouldn't rely on supplements by themselves because the food provides the best quality and the best absorption of those supplements. So I think those are my main points there.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, and I'm just going to touch on the absorption. So, Jen, you mentioned something earlier about that you had learned a little bit more about the quality of supplements. One of the reasons that our go-to is a type of supplement that we tested for, 7-8 months with the entire staff to make sure that we could truly see a difference quickly with that intake of that particular supplement or group of supplements versus somebody coming back to us in 30, 60, 90 days and saying, oh, sorry, I don't see any difference. And then maybe it's $5 more, $10 more. So no one understands and appreciates the value.
Right.
In our particular situation was exactly what you experienced, which is the reason we still use the supplement brand, right? But it does make a big difference. The other key that, Nataliia, you touched on, but I want to just come back to it, is gut health. When the gut health is truly not operating correctly, we can give you supplements all day long. It's not going to make a darn bit of difference. And the hair's only going to continue to shed. The hair's going to continue to fall. It's going to miniaturize all the way down at the anagen phase, the growing phase, and we're not going to see results.
Kimberly, this is such a good point. Our digestion, our GI tract plays such a huge role in the absorption of supplements and whole foods. But we'll do the whole episode about that. So listeners, stay tuned. But Kimberly, carry on.
Okay. So Jenn, for the listener, let's just step back a few spots, right? So you started with HPI, and then certainly you were starting to progress, and you gave everybody a little cheat that, woo, your hair's doing great now. How did the progression start? Where were you midway when you started to see a difference? And then how are you maintaining now?
Yeah. Well, what I loved about HPI is you really took a holistic approach to addressing the hair loss. And so we started with the lab work, of course, which revealed I was deficient in some certain things. So then we added supplements, and then there were topicals. So something I learned too with HPI was I was so nervous about overwashing my hair, but really there was some topicals that you shared with me, and we really needed to like stimulate the scalp, right?
And how often do you shampoo now?
Every day now.
Nataliia, how often do you shampoo now?
Don't ask me that. I have a very long hair. It takes a lot of work. So every 2 days.
Listener, just remember, stimulation on the scalp is key.
Oh, I stimulate. I massage my hair per your protocol.
Oh, very good.
And do laser therapy at home. I have the, the machine, or what is it called?
The cap? Or
the cap. Yes,
yeah.
I have the cap, so I do it all. Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, Jenn, go ahead. So now you're shampooing daily.
So shampooing daily. And then we did the laser therapy, which I do several times a week. And then progressed to PRP, which is what we mentioned earlier, using your natural platelets of blood. And then now the hair fall's hardly anything anymore, like with the exception of like the regular hair loss that you get like in the shower or something. But it's improved dramatically. And so now I've really moved just to microneedling to address and maintain just like certain areas that I feel like I want to improve and strengthen and make sure that the hair that grows there remains healthy.
Jenn, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and taking us through your struggles and successes too. I mean, like I said, you're like by textbook. You're perfectionist. I mean, you changed your diet. You started taking good quality supplements. You found the person that actually responsible, for hair health, trichologist. And I hope our listeners learned something new today, because I did, and every episode I do. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
We can't wait to see you again, Jenn. When's your next maintenance treatment?
I'm thinking this next month, actually. So very soon.
Good job. Nataliia, are you going to share a little surprise with our listeners?
Yes. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the end and for engaging. We love all the comments you send to us. And as a little thank you, Kimberly and I would like to offer a free 15-minute consultation with us, only if you mention the word podcast, so we know where you're coming from. So guys, get on our website. They're all listed in our bio below the show, and send us a message and book a free discovery call with us and get to the root cause of your hair loss.